Hello there, welcome back to welcome back to the Ogre, the old Git reacts, reviews and off times reminisces. Don't know why I'm laughing. Must be a reason. Anyway, today we're doing Hanging Entrails, who sound like they should be a death metal band or gore grind or something like that, but they're not. What are they then? Well, let's listen and see, shall we? So there can be no confusion. 1, 2, 3, go. So, I initially heard Hanging Entrails on a previous EP, which is more typical black metal, I'll say at this point. This second EP has more elements of noise about it, which isn't that apparent just yet, but there's a change in tone on this second EP, which I find a bit more pleasing than the initial EP, which was pleasing in itself. But there's anything else I want to say at this point. Sometimes my thoughts form totally always form totally randomly, but the point I was going to make was, what is it? So ultimately this is perhaps has more noise elements to it, but they're not here yet, so let's crack on. Now we're talking. When I was young, what a wee lad, it was quite common in those days for schools, in your lessons at schools, for what they were. Bear in mind, it was probably infant school age, yeah, 8 or 9, maybe 10. They used to show you educational videos, or what do you call them, videos in those days? They were actually TV programs. There was the BBC had an educational channel, I think, that at certain times of day you wheeled the TV out and plug the aerial into the general aerial, and through the ether they beamed TV programs at you of various different subjects. And the guitar the reason I say this is the guitar tone on this song reminds me of watching, I mean, the context was totally different in those days. It was one of almost pride in our maritime industrial prowess, whereas now it would be of horror. But it was whaling videos, and they would show you the capture of whales through harpooning, and then dragging the poor buggers onto a factory ship to be harvested. And of course, back in those days, it involved flensing knives, and looking back now, it was a horrible thing to see, but at the time you didn't realise that, much in the same way that back then if you saw I didn't actually, they never went as far as showing abattoir videos as part of our education back in those days, but the butchering of whales on these factory ships was no different, to be honest, than watching an abattoir video. And I've seen abattoir videos, and I've been to an abattoir, so I know it's not a particularly pleasant sight. But anyway, going back to the point, that guitar reminds me of those flensing knives. It cuts through everything. Yes. So I think it was a bit more chaotic than at the beginning. The broth has thickened somewhat, and I mean there was a nice galloping drum beat not so long back. We're now in a more groovy drum beat. Still got some pace to it, but it's more groovy than blasty. And the guitars are really, I won't say they have an identity crisis, but they are certainly facing a number of directions throughout this song, but on each occasion the guitar is something that you didn't want to get too close to. You might get yourself a nasty cut. One or two of the records, tracks I've reviewed, listened to very recently have had an improvised feel to them, and this is no different. You do get the sense that this is a one take. I've got an idea of what I want to do, let's get it down, and they've gone, that'll do. So yes, and that's sometimes that improvised sound, whether it's an artifice or whether it's actually a one take and you're done, seems more vital. Sometimes music can be far too polished for its own good. That ain't the case here, that's for sure. So there you go. It certainly incorporated a total bodge of noise right at the end there, and that is the happiest part of the track for me. That cacophony and chaos was just a job. It actually leads into this 3-track EP. This track we just listened to is the second track. It leads into the probably my favourite track, which is virtually pure noise with lots of. Has it got lots of drum and it's got lots of dynamic in it. True with me, noise of itself doesn't interest me, but noise with motion to it does. In fact, why don't we? It's only 3 minutes long. Listen to a slap of noise. Don't normally do this, but fuck it, let's go. The other day I was watching a video on YouTube, and it was a documentary about Venom, the band, and the documentary maker was using snippets of songs to avoid copyright strikes, presumably, but of course one of the tracks he used, I can't remember which song it's from now, but All Hell Breaks Loose is also, it is in the song, or All Hell Breaking Loose, one of the other, I can't remember what it is for sure. And at the time, yes, the music reflected that with Venom, but this is a whole different All Hell's Breaking Loose. This is caught in an avalanche, caught in a landslide, caught in a nuclear explosion. The descriptors for this sort of noise all involve a lot of destruction, and if you're caught in it, a lot of pain, but listening to it, of course, is pure pleasure. So to the uninitiated, of course, that's just noise, and if you get the complaint that that's just a fucking racket, it's loud noise, you can't argue with that, it is. But it's sort of noise. Again, I suppose people who don't listen to this sort of stuff, with some good with a good argument, say it's just noise, anybody can do that. Well, of course, those of us that listen to this sort of stuff know full well you can't, because it's so easy to get this sort of cacophony wrong and for it to be boring and just pure noise, with a little n, I suppose. To make this sort of cacophony vibrant and vital, and to be able to engage with it, there is much more to it than just a load of static. I don't know if there's any drums at all here, but to get that sense of dynamic to it, you need that in it for me, and the nuances that are buried in the noise need to be in there as well. So it might seem easy to do, but it ain't easy to get it right. So there you go. I was hoping, again, it's often the case for me, I thought that rush of movement carried on to the very end, but nonetheless the whole thing was vital and enjoyed it a lot. It obviously raised the ante from the initial track we listened to, but regardless, it takes me to a happy place. Anyway, clicky bollocks, catch you all next time. Cheerio.